Very good afternoon. I welcome all of you to this class on immunity, diplomatic and consular immunity, which is the last chapter. This chapter is also important for your exam because from this chapter you can expect one short question this time. So first of all, we will discuss about the meaning of immunity. What is the meaning of immunity? And then we will start discussing about the different other things like functions and powers of a diplomatic agent. And thereafter, we will also discuss the consuls and their functions and powers. And then we will also discuss some cases. So first of all, we will start with the meaning and significance of immunity, and we will start with this immunity. The whole word immunity. First of all, we must understand why immunity is needed. So immunity is the word that you might have read in the first semester itself, that it is somehow related to right. So right duty concept that you might have studied, in which there is also extension of the concept of right when somebody is given immunity. So if somebody is given immunity in law, it means that the other person is not having any right against the person who is having immunity. So other persons are disabled to claim any kind of right or remedy against the person who is given this immunity. So immunity is therefore not given to everybody. Right can be given to the citizens, every citizen, but immunity cannot be given to everybody, because in right there is a corresponding duty. But in immunity, what happens that other persons, they have got no right of any kind of claim against the person who is enjoying immunity. So therefore, it is this immunity is given to those persons who are well qualified or who are representing a very important institution like a country. So such kind of people, they are given immunity. Traditionally, sovereigns have enjoyed immunity. Sovereign mean that person who is the sovereign of the state, or in earlier times of a kingdom. So likewise, these sovereigns have enjoyed immunity since time immemorial, when they were considered as those persons who are above law. So they did not bother about what is the law of other country and what is not. So sovereigns have already enjoyed immunity, but the times have changed. In our times, we can't say that sovereigns will enjoy immunity with respect to every act of a sovereign. So in our times, there is a little bit change, and now you might have read also that the king can commit also wrong. So gone are those days when kings could not have committed any wrong. So nowadays, kings can also commit wrong. Kings can also commit crime. Sovereigns can also commit wrong. Sovereigns can also commit crime. So the thing is that, however, sovereigns enjoy immunity even today. Second thing, what we will discuss is that diplomats. Does a diplomat represent a sovereign? Because diplomats are also considered generally to be representative of a sovereign. sovereign state. So if you consider a diplomat as a representative of a traditional sovereign, then what will happen that diplomats will also be considered above law. But that is not the fact now, as the sovereigns are also not treated above law. Likewise, diplomats are also not treated above law. So nowadays, diplomats are also given immunity, not they are beyond law. They are not beyond the scope of law. They are given immunity. And then who gives immunity? So what happens that the moment a person becomes a diplomat or a consul, then what happens that immunity, he or she is cloaked or given this kind of immunity. Why? Why immunity is given? And who gives the immunity? So immunity is given by the receiving state. There will be two types of state. One is the sending state, and other state where the diplomat will represent his or her state. That country will be receiving state. So receiving state asserts its supremacy over any person within its territory, and therefore the diplomats, whoever go to the receiving state, these people, they will also be respecting the laws of that country. It will not be that diplomats will just say that, okay, there is no concern about the legal system of a country where they are present. So why immunities are granted? Immunities are granted to enable a diplomat to discharge his or her duties properly and efficiently. Because normally what happens that diplomats, they do not, they may be transferred to from one country to other country. Diplomats diplomats will have to know many legal systems. So it's very difficult for a diplomat to know all the legal systems instantly, and therefore what happens that a diplomat is not made liable to ordinary legal and political interference from the receiving state. So diplomats are a different category of persons who are given immunity. And why immunity is given? Because these are the people who are representing their state. They are not the national of the receiving state. So they are the nationals of different state. And not only nationals, but they are also trying to represent their own state. So therefore, they are more concerned with their state. And secondly, that for frivolous things, like somebody will say something and somebody else will say something. So frivolous, for frivolous matters, if a diplomat would be sued in the courts, or if for frivolous matters, if a legal proceeding will be started against a diplomat, what will happen that diplomat would not be able to discharge his or her functions properly. Therefore, immunity is granted to the diplomats. What is the law on diplomatic immunity? The law is enshrined in the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. So this convention was finally agreed in 1961, and now it's around 50 years. So Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, this regulates every aspect of this diplomats and diplomatic immunity. Although all the states in the world, they have practiced certain things on diplomats and immunity which have to be given to the diplomats. You might have heard about, in our country also, and the epic Ramayana, and recently you might have also watched some episodes of Ramayana which was aired after a long time. So you might have seen that how Diplomat, who was Hanumanji himself. So Hanumanji was representing Ayodhya before this Lanka. So how he should have been treated. So there is a whole episode on that. So likewise, there have been many instances, but the thing was that the law was not very clear. And although there was a little bit of things in Arthashastra. So in Arthashastra, Kautilya had codified it. But after that, there are some instances like in some Purans and Smritis, the immunities have been also treated. But the modern law is contained in the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. Now, this convention has 53 articles, and all these articles are not important for your examination, but I will just tell you after this slide how many articles that you have to study. Now, as far as India is considered, India acceded to this convention on 15th October 1965, and it says that how the ambassadors would be accredited and what will be the hierarchy of the diplomatic officers, and what will be the use of flags or diplomatic vehicles, and how they will be exempt from local taxation. If you look at this Vienna Convention, you will find that there are 3 types of diplomatic staff which is there, and those 3 types of diplomatic staffs are first the proper diplomatic staff. And if you look at this article 1 of this Vienna Convention, you will find that there are 3 types of administrative, 3 types of consular staff which are there. Like you see that this is consular officer, and then members of the consular. This is the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations. This is the Diplomatic Relations Convention. In this Diplomatic Relations Convention, you will find that the members of the diplomatic staff, Article 1, paragraph D says that the members of the diplomatic staff are the members of the staff of the mission having diplomatic rank. So this is one category of staff. The second category of staff is members of administrative and technical staff. The members of administrative and technical staff are those members of the staff of the mission which are employed in the administrative and technical service of the mission. Likewise, the members of the service staff, the third category, the members of the service staff are those members of the staff of the mission in the domestic service of the mission. So these are the different categories of the persons who work in a diplomatic office. So these kind of 3 types of staff are distinguished. But as far as the immunity is considered, diplomatic staff are given immunity, and they are called by diplomatic rank such as counselors, diplomatic secretaries, and attaches. And what is the meaning of diplomatic agent? Diplomatic agent is the head of the mission or a member of the diplomatic staff of the mission. What is the meaning of head of the mission? Head of the mission is the person who is charged by the sending state with the duty of acting in that capacity. What are those persons who are called head of missions? Normally, ambassadors are head of mission. High commissioners are the heads of missions. Envoys are thereafter, second rank below ambassador. They are called envoys, and thereafter below envoys are charged the affairs, diplomat of inferior rank. So these are the different categories of within the category of diplomat, the highest person who represents the whole state is called ambassadors. Then we will have to learn about the functions of diplomats. The functions of diplomats, you see this slide, diplomatic functions. The very first function of the diplomat or the diplomatic mission is this protecting the interests of sending state and its nationals in the receiving state. So if sending state is India and the receiving state is US, then the diplomat of India will protect the interests of India and Indians in America. Likewise, the second important function is representing the sending state in receiving state. So suppose if a diplomat is appointed by India and US, then that diplomat will represent India in US. The next important function is ascertaining conditions and developments in the receiving state and then reporting to the sending state. So this is a very important function of a diplomat, that how a diplomat ascertains the conditions which are prevailing in the receiving state and what are the developments going on in the receiving state, and then everything is reported to the sending state. So you might have heard about the cables, WikiLeaks, all these were, you know, the cables which were sent by the diplomats. So the thing is that diplomats are always in touch with the sending state. Maybe that every day or every 2 days afterwards, they report to their country that what is going on. Then the next important function is promoting friendly relations between the sending state and receiving state. A diplomat is never assumed to take up a responsibility of promoting hatred or a relationship which is full of envy. So diplomats' function is to promote friendly relations, and therefore a diplomat must be very much soft-spoken and always trying to be friendly and friendly behavior and of high morals, like that. So promoting friendly relations between the sending state and receiving state is also one of the diplomatic function. The next important function is negotiating with the government of the receiving state. So I have told you when I was discussing with you the sources of international law, I told you that the treaties are negotiated. So suppose if a treaty, bilateral treaty is to be negotiated, then who does it? Normally the embassies are involved in it. And the diplomatic staff, they will be involved in the negotiation with the government of the receiving state. So these are some of the functions of a diplomat, and therefore even Kautilya had mentioned in Arthashastra that what are the basic qualifications to become a diplomat. So always very high qualification, and then sweet tongue, and thereafter high morals and high etiquettes. So these are some of the things which are important for becoming a diplomat. Then I will turn on to the next, which is very important for your exam, is what are the privileges and immunities which a diplomat enjoys. I have told you that what is the function of immunity, which is given to a diplomat. The function is to make or to enable a diplomat discharge his functions efficiently, properly. And therefore, these are some of the immunities and privileges which are granted to the diplomats or the staff of a diplomatic mission, normally the diplomatic staff of the diplomatic mission. And what are those? First is that inviolability of the premises of the diplomatic mission. So the premises where the diplomatic mission is established, that will be inviolable. And likewise, the inviolability of the diplomatic bag. Diplomatic bag is the bag where the correspondence is there. So I have told you that the diplomatic mission is entrusted with the task of communication between the receiving state and the sending state, and therefore diplomatic bag may contain several papers and several CDs or maybe different other material. So that should not be violated. And therefore, you'll find many provisions in the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, starting from Article 22. So, Law Center 2, you will easily remember Article 22, even if you remember this article, Article 22, because it will go on to up to Article 36, 7. So, at least 3, 4, 5 provisions you must remember. First is Article 22, which talks about inviolability of diplomatic premises. The premise where you might have seen the embassy of United States in New Delhi. You are very fortunate that you are also staying in Delhi. So if you have seen that where is the US embassy in Delhi, you will find that it is a kind of fort. It's an area which is fortified. And that fort area is inviolable. It is made inviolable by the country which has sent its diplomatic staff to other country. And also it is also the duty of the receiving state mainly, that receiving state is having the duty to protect the diplomatic premises of the country, of the sending sending state. Moving on to next article, Article 27, which is on the communication of diplomats. It says that the receiving state shall permit and protect free communication on behalf of the mission for all official purposes. And such official communication will be inviolable. And therefore, we say that inviolability of diplomatic bags. So diplomatic bags which have so many papers and so many documents, that should not be opened by the receiving state. Article 29 is on the person, on individual, on diplomat's body. It says that person of a diplomatic agent is also inviolable. It says that the receiving state should not try to violate the body of the diplomatic staff. And therefore, you'll find that this Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, this is very important. It deals with, you see, this is Article 27, which deals with communication. And thereafter, you'll find that Article 29 says that the person of a diplomatic agent shall be inviolable. He shall not be liable to any form of arrest or detention. The receiving state shall treat him with due respect and shall take all appropriate steps to prevent any attack on his person, freedom, or dignity. So this is what is about 29. And then we will move on to Article 30, which says inviolability of private residence of a diplomatic agent and inviolability of his papers, correspondence, and property. So it is not that only where the diplomat goes for work, that place will be inviolable, but private residence of a diplomatic agent, because in the era of growing extremism, terrorism, diplomats and their homes and family are targets of violent groups and oppositions. And therefore, what happens that Article 30 says that private residence of a diplomatic agent is also inviolable. Not only that, but papers, correspondence, and property of such diplomatic agent are inviolable. Then we will move on to quickly to some other provisions like Article 31, which says that the diplomats are to be protected from criminal jurisdiction of receiving state, and they enjoy absolute immunity, but only when they are committing crimes which are not very serious. So otherwise it may become very difficult for a diplomat to escape the legal system. So normally absolute immunity is given from the criminal jurisdiction of receiving state, and no immunity from the jurisdiction of sending state. So it means that if a diplomat has committed crime, then the sending state may take legal action or legal remedy against that person. Finally, diplomats are also exempt from the taxes of the receiving state, and therefore Article 36 says that diplomats will be exempt from all dues and taxes except for the indirect taxes and custom duties and inspection at airport or at other places where inspections are needed. So therefore, what you will find that the diplomats are not levied with any kind of tax. So suppose income tax, etc. These are not to be paid by the diplomats. So they are exempt from it. Even if they will buy a car or vehicle, then the tax will not be levied, right? But obviously, indirect tax like service tax, etc., that may be charged. So these are some of the privileges and immunities of a diplomat. Now I will be moving on to consuls. And first of all, I will try to tell you that what is the meaning of consul. So the consul is a new term. Consul is not a term which has been in use since a long time, although this term has been in use in the Western world, but not in this part of the world. So consuls are a different category of persons who are having different functions to discharge. And traditionally, consuls were appointed in the times of Roman Empire, when merchants they had to appoint a consul to resolve the dispute amongst the merchants or the person who was the buyer. So like that. So consuls were traditionally like that. So it meant that consuls traditionally meant that they would protect the commercial interest of the society. Now this word has been retained even today, and consuls are agents of a state in a foreign country. So now the meaning has changed. So they have become the agents of a state in a foreign country. And what is their primary duty? The primary duty is to protect the commercial interest of the sending state. Now, because of the growing trade amongst the countries, a new convention was required. And after this whole international relations have been organized after Second World War, in 1961, we have seen Diplomatic Relations Convention. And in 1963, another convention on consular relations. This is also called Vienna Convention, because both these conventions were agreed in Vienna. So Vienna Convention on Consular Relations of 1963, which came into force on 19th of March 1967. Now this convention has two optional protocols, and India and Pakistan both have signed these two optional protocols. And one of the optional protocol is concerning the compulsory settlement of disputes. So if there will be a dispute regarding interpretation or application of the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations, then if the country concerned has signed the optional protocol, then the dispute will necessarily go to International Court of Justice. And that is why we will turn on to when we will turn on to Kulbhushan Jadhav case. We will see that how Kulbhushan Jadhav case relied on this provision. I will also let you know about some of the basic provisions, like Article 1, Paragraph 8 says consular post. What is the meaning of consular post? It says consular post means any consulate general. Second rank is consulate. Second office below the consulate general will be consulate. And the third in the hierarchy is vice consulate. And last is consular agency. So these are all offices. Highest office is consulate general's office. Second highest office is consulate's office. And the third highest is vice consulate. And the last is consular agency. Article 1, paragraph B defines consular officer, and it says it means any person, including the head of a consular post, who is entrusted in that capacity with the exercise of consular functions. Now we will move on to Article 9. 9 says that heads of consular posts are divided into 4 classes. And those 4 classes are, at the top is Consul General, at the second top is Consul, the third is Vice Consuls, and at the bottom is Consular Agents. So these are the different 4 types of consuls who are there appointed by the sending state and who function in the receiving state. Now I will move on to the consular functions. Like I told you about the diplomatic functions, consuls also have certain functions to discharge, and the very first function of a consul is issuing of passports, visa, and travel documents, and those persons who wish to travel to the sending state. So if you have gone to, suppose if you are willing to go to US, then you will have to take the visa, and thereafter who will do it? Normally the consulate office does it. And likewise, the second important function is promoting of commercial, economic, cultural, and scientific relations between the sending state and the receiving state. So first function is to promote commercial relations, then economic relations. The third is cultural also, and then the last is scientific relations. So all these kind of relations have to be also promoted by the consuls. The third important function of consul is protecting the interests of sending state and its nationals. So this was also the function of a diplomat, and this is also the function of a consul. The next function of a consul is assisting vessels and aircrafts in their voyage. So cargo aircrafts, cargo vessels, they are moving every day. If they face any difficulty, they can contact the consul office in the region, and they will assist the ship and the aircraft in their voyage. The next is transmitting of judicial and extrajudicial documents or letters rogatory for the courts of sending state. So if any kind of document is needed for the court of sending state, then the consul's office will be very, very helpful. And if letter rogatory is needed, then letter rogatory will be also transmitted by the consul's office. So consular functions, these functions are very, very important. And lastly, the consular function, we are talking about the main consular functions. Lastly, the consular function is acting as notary. So you are all law students. Notary, the importance of notary you might know when you go to the court. Notaries always attest the documents. So consuls can also have the power to attest the documents, and they act as civil registrar. So consuls are also like registrars. So these are very important functions which are discharged by the consuls. And then now we will move on to the privileges and immunities of consuls. I told you that diplomats also enjoy privileges. Likewise, consuls also enjoy privileges. I started with Article 22 in the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. In the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations, I will start with Article 28. So 28, and here I will not be going on to 29 and 30, but I will be just picking up certain articles from the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations. So starting with Article 28, it says that receiving state is obliged to accord full facilities for the function of the consular post. And then Article 31 also talks about the privileges and function of the consular staff. Article 31 says that the consular premises shall be inviolable to the extent provided in this article. So as I told you that the premises of a diplomatic mission is also inviolable, likewise consular premises will be also inviolable. And thereafter you will find that how this article is going in details. You might not remember it, but at least you must say that the premises of consular office, that is inviolable. The next is exemption from tax of the consular premises. So property tax, house tax, etc. These will not be taken from the consular offices. And then archives and documents. This is also inviolable. And next is movement, freedom of movement. The receiving state shall ensure freedom of movement and travel of the consular staff. And important function of consul, I told you that to send important documents, and therefore freedom of communication. It says that the receiving state shall permit and protect freedom of communication on the part of the consular post for all official purposes. The official correspondence of the consular post is inviolable. Paragraph 2, official correspondence means all correspondence relating to the consular post and its functions. The consular bag is never to be opened and it must be not detained. The packages constituting the consular bag shall bear visible external marks of the character, and it may contain only official correspondence and documents or articles which are intended exclusively for official use. So these are important provisions, and then you will see that Article 40 and then 41. 41 is about the personal inviolability. It says consular officers shall not be liable to arrest or detention pending trial, except in the case of grave crime and pursuant to a decision by the competent judicial authority. So criminal cases, they have no immunity compared to diplomats who were given immunity even in the criminal cases. Then we will see that notification of arrest or detention or prosecution, it says that in the event of the arrest or detention pending trial of a member of the consular staff, the receiving state shall promptly notify the head of the consular post. And then Article 43 says that as far as the administrative authorities of the receiving states are concerned, the consuls will not be amenable to the jurisdiction of judicial or administrative authorities of the receiving state. So suppose if you become a judge tomorrow, you will not be having under your jurisdiction any consul office or consular staff. So these are some of the important provisions. And then I will also tell you about Article 36, which says that the competent authority have the power to inform the consular post of the sending state, a national of that state is arrested or committed to prison or to custody pending trial, or is detained in any other manner. So, you see, communication, this is Article 36. Article 36 says communication and contact with nationals of the sending state. So, the consuls have the power to communicate with nationals of the sending state. And therefore, what happens that the competent, if he so requests, who requests? The consul office, the office of the consular general or consulate general office. If that office requests, the competent authorities of the receiving state shall inform the consular post of the sending state within its consular district, a national of that state is arrested or committed to prison or to custody pending trial or is detained in any other manner. Any communication addressed to the consular post by the person arrested shall be forwarded by the state authorities without delay. The state authorities shall inform the person concerned without delay of his rights under this paragraph. And then the next paragraph says consular officers shall have the right to visit a national of the sending state who is in prison, custody or detention, to conserve and correspond with him and to arrange for his legal representation. These are very important provisions that I am telling you. What are the functions of consular office? That they have also to see that if a person who is arrested and the person who is arrested is a citizen of the sending state, whom the consuls also represent. In such case, what will happen that consuls can meet them and also provide kind of legal help. So legal representation in the court, that will also be provided, that may be provided by the consul's office. So these are some of the important paragraphs I thought that you must know. And then I will be now moving on to India. I will tell you that Government of India, in the modern times, Government of India decided in 1946 to create a separate cadre called Indian Foreign Service for India's diplomatic, consular and commercial representation abroad. So we do not have a different cadre for the consul's functions. So diplomatic and consular functions and even commercial representation, everything is combined into one service cadre, which is Indian Foreign Service. Indian Foreign Service officer starts his career as third secretary, and then person is promoted to second secretary and first secretary thereafter, and thereafter counselor, and thereafter minister, and at the highest post that IFS officer can get is ambassador or high commissioner or permanent representative to international organization. IFS officer can also be posted in Indian consulates abroad, and the starting point is vice consul, and thereafter consuls, and thereafter consul general. So highest is consul general. If IFS officer is posted in MEA, Ministry of External Affairs, he may start with under secretary and then deputy secretary and then director, and thereafter joint secretary, and thereafter additional secretary, and at the top, if some IFS officer, very lucky IFS officers, they get the post of secretary. India has also incorporated, not only acceded to the two Vienna Conventions on diplomatic relations and consular relations, but it has also enacted the Diplomatic Relations Act of 1972, and it says that Article 1 and Articles 32 to 40 of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations are given the force of domestic law, and this is based on reciprocity. So this is, it means that India as a country has accepted the immunities and functions of diplomats and consuls without any problem. Now I am going to some of the cases which are important to make you understand that how this immunities and diplomats, diplomatic immunities and consular immunities, they work. So first of all, I'll be taking up the Khobragade case. A Khobragade case you might have heard. Devyani, Dr. Devyani Khobragade was initially in the consulate office of in the New York City, and she was an IFS officer from India. And what happened that she was in New York City from 26th October to 8th January 8th January 2014. She was a consular officer, and therefore she was enjoying consular immunity. And then she was claiming that she was appointed as a special advisor to the UN on 26th of August 2013, and therefore she was having diplomatic immunity. And in the meantime, what happened that she was arrested on 12th December 2013 and charged with visa fraud, which is very serious, and making false statements to the government. So these are very, very serious offenses in the US. And what happened that she was therefore arrested, and she was strip searched, cavity searched, and swabbed for DNA in New York City. So these are all normally not any diplomat is not treated like this. So because the charges were so grave that she was not only arrested, but she was also checked. So her body was, according to the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations and Diplomatic Relations, the body is inviolable. But then she was checked and she was swabbed also. Now, what happened that she was also confined with criminals for some time. However, she was later released under many bail conditions, and then on 8th of January 2014, what happened that she was appointed as a counselor to the permanent mission of India to the United Nations. And thereafter, what happened that she was given diplomatic immunity, because this post is a diplomat's post, counselor to the permanent mission of India to the UN, which is there in New York City. So that post gave her diplomatic immunity, and the case was going on in New York City because she was allegedly she had committed this visa fraud. So she was indicted in January 2014, and in the court she claimed diplomatic immunity. Initially, she said that she was having diplomatic immunity since 26th of August, although she was arrested on 12th of December 2013. So she was saying that before her arrest, she was enjoying diplomatic immunity, but that was not accepted by the court. But the court accepted that she was enjoying diplomatic immunity once the proceedings started in the court. And thereafter, she was saying that now I have become diplomat and therefore I must be released. I am enjoying diplomatic immunity now, and diplomats are not coming under the criminal jurisdiction of a country. And thereafter, what happened that the New York City court, it held that Devyani Khobragade, she enjoys diplomatic immunity, and even if immunity is acquired during the pendency of proceedings, then it destroys the jurisdiction of the court. And therefore, what happened that the court ruled that diplomatic immunity serves as a defense to suits which are already commenced. So after that only, Devyani Khobragade she was released, and then she came back to India under several bail conditions. She was also saying that no, all the charges must be taken off, but then the court said that okay, we will see, but you have to leave the country first. So because this was very serious crime that you have committed. So the thing is that diplomats, you become a diplomat tomorrow, but then you must have a very high moral, and then you must not be indulging in any activity which is amounting to a crime in the receiving state. Now I'll be moving on to the next case, which is U.S. diplomatic and consular staff in Tehran case, USA versus Iran, that was decided by International Court of Justice in 1980, and Justice Nagendra Singh from India. He was also there as one of the judge who delivered this judgment. I have already discussed this case when I was taking up state responsibility. Here I will just tell you in a different context that you all know that many officers of the diplomatic mission in Tehran from US, they were made hostage. They were taken hostage by the students of Iran, and those students were representing some kind of ideology, and they did not like US embassy because first of all, I will like you to see this video, and then I will move on to this one.
In the fall of 1979, protesters broke into the American embassy in Iran, took dozens of people hostage, and kept them there for a long, long time. This was the Iran hostage crisis, an episode that changed the course of American history. Let's take a step back. This hostage crisis didn't come out of nowhere. It was the culmination of several decades of bad blood between the United States and Iran. In 1953, the U.S. helped topple Iran's elected prime minister, replacing him with Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, also known as simply the Shah. The Shah was friendly to the U.S. interests, particularly when it came to oil. The Shah was about as popular in Iran as ants at a picnic. He was a brutal dictator, and his infamous secret police, the Savak, terrorized, tortured, and killed people. Opposition to the Shah grew and grew. In January of 1979, he and his family left Iran on vacation, never to return. By the spring of that year, a religious leader, the Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, took power. This is the Iranian Revolution. He established a new government, an Islamic Republic. This new government, and the young masses who supported it, had no love for the United States. They staged demonstrations outside the U.S. Embassy in the Iranian capital of Tehran. Trouble was brewing. Leaving Iran, the Shah bounced around from country to country, but after a cancer diagnosis, he wanted to come to the United States to receive the best medical care. President Jimmy Carter didn't want to admit the Shah, but relented under pressure from a group of elder statesmen led by Henry Kissinger and David Rockefeller. The Shah arrived at the New York hospital on October 22nd, 1979. As Carter predicted, giving shelter to the Shah angered the Iranian revolutionaries a lot. So much so that on November 4th, 1979, a huge mob of protesters attacked the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. Knock, knock. Who's there? 3,000 of us, and we're mad as hell. The mob took 63 people at the embassy prisoner. Later, 3 more people were taken hostage at the Iranian Foreign Ministry, bringing the total to 66. 13 days later, the Ayatollah ordered the release of 13 hostages, leaving 53. Another hostage was subsequently released on medical grounds. From then on, the remaining 52 were there for the long haul. They were held in the same embassy complex where they'd once worked. No hostages were killed, but they weren't treated well either. Some were beaten with rubber hoses or hung over elevator shafts. Several men were even victims of a mock execution. In the States, the hostage crisis gripped the news cycle.
Iranian militants seized the American embassy in Iran.
The American government demanded the hostages released, but were rebuffed. The Iranians wanted the Shah shipped to them. No, said the U.S. To drive the point home, the U.S. froze Iranian assets held in American banks. But still, the Iranians didn't budge. In April of 1980, President Carter decided to try something different. He authorized a military rescue mission known as Operation Eagle Claw. But poor weather and mechanical failures doomed the mission. leaving America and the Carter administration embarrassed on the world stage. Carter was in an election, and his opponent, Ronald Reagan, pounced on him for being weak and ineffective.
5 months ago.
When election day rolled around, the hostages were still being held captive with no end in sight. Reagan trounced Carter in the polls. By the start of
So now you have seen that how the politics was unfolding in United States after this Tehran crisis. What I will be more interested in telling you is that when this matter went to International Court of Justice, United States first of all went to International Court of Justice, and United States was pleading before ICJ that Iran should be held responsible for violating Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, and that was accepted by the court, and court held Iran responsible for the violation of Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations 1961, because I have told you that this is the duty of the receiving state to protect the diplomatic premises. Diplomatic premises are inviolable, and because Iran failed to do it, therefore this was not only failed, but this prompted, the whole incident prompted, as you have seen in this video, that the whole incident prompted the Iranian students and demonstrators to hold 66 US citizens who were out of home. 28 people were from the diplomatic staff as hostages. So this was a complete failure by Iranian authorities, and therefore what happened at International Court of Justice was not having any doubt to hold that it was a violation of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. And it also said that the receiving state has the responsibility to protect the archives, the diplomatic premises, and the court upheld the principle of inviolability of the premises of a diplomatic mission. So this case will give you a good understanding of the importance of inviolability of diplomatic mission of sending a state. Now I'll be moving on to the last case, which is Jadhav case, Kulbhushan Jadhav case, which unfolded very recently, and only last year it was finally decided by International Court of Justice. And India had moved to International Court of Justice because in this case what happened that Kulbhushan Jadhav was earlier serving in Indian Navy, and thereafter when he retired, he went to Iran, and he was doing some business there, and somehow or the other he was arrested by the Pakistani authorities, and they found that he was containing a passport in which the name was different. So they were saying that this person is indulged in espionage and acts of terrorism. But then what happened that they not only arrested him, but also put him for trial before a military court, and the military court held that he was involved in the acts of espionage and the acts of terrorism, and therefore he should be hanged to death. There was appeal provision also, mercy petition also was to be filed, and when this matter was highlighted before the media by Pakistani authorities themselves, then only India came to know about Kulbhushan Jadhav's arrest and detention and trial and prosecution and punishment by the military court of Pakistan. And then India demanded consular access according to the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations to its national in Pakistan, but which was not given. India sent at least a dozen of note parvels to Pakistan, and then all those note parvels were not accepted. Finally, what India had to do that, because now he was to be executed, Kulbhushan Jadhav was to be executed in Pakistan, and therefore India had to immediately go to International Court of Justice as a place where immediate remedy was possible. So what happened that India went to International Court of Justice. But then when India filed this case before International Court of Justice, Pakistan wanted to first of all pray to the court that no, this petition should not be entertained by International Court of Justice, because India and Pakistan, they are under a duty to resolve any dispute bilaterally. But India was very much successful in arguing before the court that because of the fact India and Pakistan have both signed optional protocol to this Vienna Convention on Consular Relations, especially on the compulsory settlement of disputes between the parties, and therefore ICJ certainly has jurisdiction. And that clinched the matter with International Court of Justice. International Court of Justice held that ICJ has jurisdiction over this case, and thereafter it went on to say that whether the provisions of Vienna Convention on Consular Relations that were violated by Pakistan or not, the answer was yes. And what happened? That the court held that Pakistan was under an obligation to provide, by means of its own choosing, effective review and reconsideration of the conviction and sentence of Jadhav. So you see that it was a hard-fought battle before International Court of Justice, and however, this case was finally decided in favor of Kulbhushan Jadhav and in favor of India. You might have heard about famous advocate of India, Harish Salve. He was there, he was representing India, and the whole Ministry of External Affairs, Legal Division, Legal and Treaty Division in India, they were all involved in this case. So this case is interesting, and this will tell you about the importance of these Vienna Conventions. Finally, if you are further interested in this topic, you might read a chapter in my book, Shifting Horizons of Public International Law, a South Asian Perspective, which was published by Springer in 2018. With this, I hope that you might have understood something about diplomatic privileges and immunities. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Be safe and healthy. Thank you.